Welcome, one and all, to the February 3rd edition of the Signals from Mars live stream. I'm your host, Victor, and we are spanning the globe once again like wild, screw it, wide world of sports.
Wide world of metal.
Why, that's what my next thing was going to be, but I stumbled and rolled downhill with that one. So, yes,
That's the agony of defeat right there.
yeah, we have Mr. Patron's Pick, Jeremy Weltman. We have Metal Dan out in California. We have Johan in Sweden. And we have Brad Dahl in the deserts of Utah.
The frosty deserts of Utah. Yes.
Frosty deserts of Utah. So awesome. We have a few topics to discuss for those of you that are joining us for the first time. We pride ourselves in offering a quality music discussion show. I think if anyone listens to the discussions that we have, whether we agree or not with each other, the discussions are always good. The discussions are always something that I think you can take something away and think about what we've discussed. Maybe we'll turn you on to some music. Maybe we'll let you know that something is taking place. Maybe we do absolutely nothing for you. But in any event, we all have fun hooking up on Friday nights and talking to one another. Friday nights, and for you, Brad, it's 2:00 in the afternoon, and for Metal Dan, it's 1, right? Or am I screwing that up? No. For Dan, it's 9 hours difference, 11, 2, and for Brad, it's 3. Okay, never mind. All right. Fumbling and bumbling again. Anyway. Real quick, I forgot to mention during my Patreon podcast, because I'm sure that most of you will probably listen to the new Winery Dogs, which came out today. The song Pharaoh. Listen to it and then listen to Kisses Under the Gun. And let me know if you guys think that the song sounds similar. So do that this weekend. Maybe you guys will think that I'm absolutely crazy, but I think the verse sounds a hell of a lot like Kisses Under the Gun. Chorus, not so much, but anyway.
You could still be crazy, though.
What's that?
You could still be crazy, though.
I could still be crazy regardless. You're right. So first topic of the night, I listened to a podcast, a national news outlet, and they were talking about Ticketmaster, Live Nation, and a bunch of different things ticket related. And me and Jeremy were actually talking about this last night, and Jeremy said, "Hold it, let's save it for tomorrow's show." So that's what we're doing here. So there's a few things that I want to touch upon here. First off, the podcast that I listened to talked about how ticket prices have just jumped in a ridiculous manner for a lot of artists that are coming around and touring here in Spain. They brought up Madonna, they brought up Bruce Springsteen, and they brought up Rod Stewart. And the thing that they were talking about was how, for example, Rod Stewart, the cheapest ticket is 150 euros. So that's roughly $160, let's say. And what they're saying, what the discussion was that Rod Stewart, for example, here in Spain hasn't been big in 30 years. So how can you command that amount of money for nosebleed seats in an arena that seats 18,000 people, I think? Yeah. So, and then they brought up the fact that Springsteen, for example, the tickets are 125, 300, and 1,200. Madonna's kind of similar with that. So the first thing that they talked about, they mentioned, okay, we get that the pandemic harmed a lot of these acts, but a band who a lot of times likes to thank their audience for, being there, providing them with the lifestyles that they live. Are they doing their fans wrong by charging these insane amount of money for tickets? Jeremy, since we kind of started talking about this yesterday, and you brought up Rod Stewart, which coincidentally they talked about during this episode, what's your take on this?
Yeah, well, there's probably quite a lot of aspects to this, and I guess the other guys are going to chime in with some of the other things. But I mean, obviously, the cost of touring has gone shooting through the roof. We know about the cost of transport, which is a big thing. Just putting on a show nowadays is going to cost a hell of a lot of money, and there's there's a lot to these shows as well. If you take Rod Stewart as an example, he's got 20 odd people on stage with him. He's got his band, he's got his backing singers, he's got various people playing flutes and violins and mandolins and whatever. And so there's a hell of a lot to it, and they're only paying, and it's a huge show. On the other side of it, the paying public can't afford the rises. It's going up and up. It's appealing to the middle classes, the upper classes who can afford to pay, and those who can't, they're getting pushed out all the time. So it's a tricky problem. I think it's gone up too much, but then inflation's gone up a huge amount, as we know, around the world. And so, what can you say? Unless you get on a promoter and they explain and break down all the costs, and we find out, how much profit they're making out of it all, we'll know more about it. But, some of these big stars are obviously going to take a huge cut. They must have, said in advance what they're going to play per show, and then they work the ticket price around that depending on all the costs. But it's getting a bit ridiculous, and it makes you want to go and see smaller acts.
Yeah, and one of the things that you brought up, they mentioned how people's wages haven't gone up the same way that the ticket prices have gone up, or how inflation has gone up. And for a lot of people, you have to choose between feeding your family and getting tickets.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I used to go and see Rod Stewart quite often because my wife is a big fan of him, and we've now stopped going. We've been on all of his major tours, and the prices have just gone up and up, and eventually we just said, it's just getting ridiculous now. We don't want to go.
Yeah. The other thing too is he's only playing folk music. He's not even playing any of the songs that he's known for. So, that's just the whole situation's weird. Dan, what's your take on this?
Well, when Jeremy said it makes you want to see smaller acts, that's my take on it. So, thankfully, Overkill is going to come around. They're going to be in Spain before here, but they're not going to be charging that kind of money. They're going to charge a little bit more, but they're not going to charge that rate. And to go see Roxanne at Vamped or the Roxy or the Whiskey, they're not going to charge a huge amount. So when it comes to that, and so far Maiden hasn't done that to the fans either. Maiden still has a fan club. Maiden still routes the tickets through the fan club. And so far the bots haven't gotten in. And so far the prices to see Maiden have been reasonable. Mm-hmm. 80 US, stuff like that. And those are on the floor. So far they haven't jerked their fans. So if they want to do that, Springsteen and whatever, then I'm just not going to go. Thankfully, I've been around enough. I've seen who I want to see. So for me, it's not my problem anymore. But I think they're probably charging because of the reselling of the tickets.
Yeah, could be. Brad?
Yeah, I think you forgot to add in the cost of producing all those backing tracks that are being used. Rod Stewart's really not doing rock. I mean, that's what his latest Vegas show was all his rock songs. So I thought that's what he was taking on tour. That's interesting.
All folk music. It's
nobody. I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't pay $5 for that. So. Good luck, Rod.
Yeah, no Maggie May. If there's a mandolin, it's some Danny Boy, come hither thee type lyric thing. So
is Richie Blackmore joined his band, or
I don't know if those two could coexist on the same stage.
Well, that would be something, wouldn't it? Okay, yeah, back to the original question. Sorry to go on a tangent there. Yeah, things are expensive, man. Let's see. Today, my son, he's a big fan of Travis Scott. I don't know if you know who he is. He's big in the hip hop world. He had that big festival in Houston that unfortunately some people died, and that led him to not touring or anything for a while. But he's doing his first show after that will be here in Salt Lake at the we're having the NBA All-Star game here. We're hosting. So he's doing this for, because he's big with the NBA and all that, at a pretty moderately sized club. And tickets went on sale today, and they sold out in 2 minutes. Now, my son was in there, and him and 5 of his buddies. None of his buddies got selected, but Nathan did. He could buy up to 8 tickets. He bought 6 like a dumbass. Bless his heart. He said, well, I looked at the cost of them. I couldn't spend that kind of money. Couldn't spend that kind of. But Shelly, being the mom of the year that she is, she got on, and she has a knack for being selected in these things. She got selected. She bought 8 tickets, and it cost. Let me get the money here. So they're $153 each. This is for a club show, where he's not even billed on the bill, but he's going to be there and he's going to do stuff. It's some other guy that nobody cares about that's being billed on this thing, I guess. Just be sneaky. $153 for the tickets, $27 for the service charge. So 8 tickets was $1,400. Right now on the resale sites here, they're going from $250 to $1,000 a ticket. These are all general admission.
Wow.
So yeah, Shelly's going to make some money because we're not going.
So 2 weeks ago, they announced that Muse and Royal Blood were going to be playing at the local soccer stadium here on July 4th. Originally, they mentioned that the tickets were going to be around 60 euros. And Tuesday, when the tickets went on sale, they were actually 76 euros. They sold 17,000 tickets in 20 minutes, I think they said. And when I tallied what it would cost for 4 of us to go, was almost $300, around $300. And I said, I'd love to go, but got other things to pay for right now. I unfortunately do not have Dr. Poison's pockets. So unless things change, we will not be going. But yeah, I would have loved to go, but we'll see what happens.
That's the real messed up thing about this. I mean, you think about when we were kids and we wanted to go to a show. I mean, I know the first show I went to, I floor seats at the Long Beach Sports Arena, Blue Oyster Cult headlining. I think it was like $8, and those were the expensive seats.
Right.
The second show I went to was Black Sabbath at this Long Beach Sports Arena. We bought the really cheap seats. They were $4.75. And I realized that was a whole different time.
Yeah.
I mean, whole different world. But kids nowadays, I mean, I don't know how they can afford to go to these things.
And that's one of the things that I was going to bring up a little later on, but I'll throw it out there before throwing on over to Johan. But recently on a show that I was listening to, they talked about the fact that the two hosts had been able to get to a lot of shows because back in the 80s and 90s, you had these $20 tickets. You had $9 tickets. The $20 tickets usually had one fairly known band. I mean, it wasn't a huge band, but it was somebody that you would hear on the radio. And then it was usually 3 or 4 like up and coming bands. So for $20, you were seeing, 2 hours, 3 hours worth of music. Or for $9, you were seeing one band. Now that doesn't exist. So much is said about streaming and downloading and this and that, but if you're charging $100 and something a ticket, how are kids going to afford that? Now, again, during this podcast that I was listening to, they brought up something interesting, that a lot of festival tickets go on sale between September and January, not only in Spain, but throughout Europe. And the main reason was because a lot of kids asked for tickets for Christmas. So, they look for that one festival show that they want to go to, that one big concert that they want to go to, and they ask for the tickets for their birthday or for Christmas. So that's another thing, but it's not, again, a cheap ticket that you can go to. Johan, what's your take on all of this?
Yeah, I was today. They released Megadeth tickets for Stockholm for the 30th one of July, and it was for me and my son. It was let's see here. I have the tickets here. Excuse me.
No?
So it's 260 euros for 2 Megadeth tickets in Stockholm, and I find that expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I will buy them, of course, because I can afford it, but
Mm-hmm.
I find it's way too expensive, and I think this, if you choose to see it in another way, it's perhaps this can create something good, that the ticket rates are so high to see a American band or whatever, but that can create a subgenre again, like punk rock or whatever. But I think that people want to see rock and they want to have fun, and they don't want to pay that amount of money to see Megadeth. I only go to see Megadeth because of my son.
Mm-hmm.
It's, Megadeth isn't that great live, but to be honest, but
Right.
If that high ticket rate can produce something good,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps something good came out of it. If you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand that. Being that
Sorry for the bad English, but that's
no, but that makes
Yeah.
sense though. Being that the tickets are so high, there's only so many people that are going to be able to afford that. So the counterbalance to that is having bands come around and play for a lot cheaper, for what you're saying, that another scene will develop out of this, where that would happen. The other thing too is, how far is it to Stockholm from where you live?
It's 500 kilometers.
Wow. Okay.
That's
So
fine.
that's
Right.
3 hours.
4 4 hours by car.
Okay.
That's not a problem. It's normal for us, but
No, but here's the thing: is it's the ticket plus travel, plus if you're going to stay somewhere while you're there, food. So it's all that adds up. So it's already 200 for the tickets, but when it's all said and done, maybe you're paying 600 between gas and hotel and food and everything else. If you want to pick up a t-shirt, they're now 50 euros and up. This all adds up. It all, because it's similar for me. I mean, most shows are 4 to 5 hours away. Dan just mentioned Overkill. Overkill is playing in a club that used to get a lot of shows. It's on the border with France, so it's 3 hours away from me. When I saw them here, they were about an hour away, 50 minutes to an hour, which wasn't bad. But with gas prices and everything else, you start totaling things up, you know, it's $100 to fill a 9-liter tank now. So you know, these are things you have to consider. Another interesting thing that I heard during this podcast, which could be the wave of the future. This could be something along the lines of what Johan mentioned. So Ticketmaster and Live Nation currently sells or has a monopoly on 85% of all concert tickets worldwide. Okay. And even though they're now currently before Congress and their president is saying, oh, no, there's never been more competition than there is now. I'm not sure in what, because for ticket sales, there's definitely no competition. It's definitely a monopoly. But here in Spain, with some of the bigger electronica festivals, you've had American hedge funds come in and buy a percentage of the festivals. Okay, so what they've done by doing this is they've excluded Ticketmaster. They've done ticketing themselves. And they've also branched out and, you know, by buying into the festivals, they've started festivals up in other parts of the world with the same name. Hey, look, we've got, for example, there's one called the Sonar Festival. Well, the Sonar Festival, famous electronica festival, which has been around for 30, 40 years. We're going to bring it to your country now. You can, you know, expect. It was much like in the 80s when the Monsters of Rock Festival toured throughout Europe. You had various Monsters of Rock. It would start out in Donington, and then they would go other places. And you would know, hey, it's the Monsters of Rock name. So I know there's going to be a certain type of quality behind it. Jeremy, you're the financial guy here, the economics guy. Could you see hedge funds coming into Download, to Hellfest, to some of these bigger festivals, wanting to buy in? Would this be the future that would kind of liberate us from the, you know, from the big ticket mongers and kind of bring prices down to make it more economical for the rest of us? Because they were comparing tickets, and these festival tickets are, on average, they were saying they were like 30 to 40 euros cheaper than other festivals.
Yeah, I think if they do come in, they're gonna be more competitive in their pricing because they're not so well established in the market. They want to attract customers, and they want to compete away the business. And yes, I mean, at the moment there's just not enough competition in the market, and this is one of the problems why the prices are so high. It's not just the price of the ticket, as we know. There's all the add-ons that go on top of the ticket, the admin fee, the booking fee, the mailing fee, the fee for the guy who brings the ticket, the fee, it goes on and on, doesn't it? I mean, it's ridiculous. They should just quote a price, but we don't care how it's split up. That just quotes the end price. But yeah, I mean they've obviously spotted that there's a way to make money out of it and to compete away, what is a virtual monopoly by Ticketmaster and its other companies. And so, yeah, I mean, it could help the customer because competition always does help the customer eventually. But then again, it might not because they all might sort of. It depends how many firms get involved and how many individuals get involved in the business. At the moment you've got a very small amount of individuals. You might get one or two more that might come in, but then you get a sort of oligopoly situation, and the prices can be kept high. At the end of the day, I think the big issue is that the paying public needs to stop going.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's the only way that we can bring the prices down. If we all just abandon festivals, we abandon concerts, and these arenas are 3/4 empty, the prices will have to come down, and we will then buy the tickets at the cheaper price.
Yeah.
But you can see why they have a high price as well, because a lot of the bands are complaining that it's the only way they make money, and that obviously the deals they cut are very poor. They're only getting a percentage of the final amount, because everybody's taking the cut elsewhere. So what can you do? It's a kind of a no-win situation really on either side.
Right.
But without us, they don't exist.
Absolutely. Here's the other thing: is if a show gets canceled, you get refunded everything but those extra fees.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, do you know what the fees are for a ticket that's $1,000 or €1,000?
What?
$400 in handling fees.
Oh my gosh.
Because then you're paying the envelope licker, the guy that, just the ridiculous amount of people. How much different is the work that goes into an $1,000 ticket as opposed to one that's $100? I mean, is a bird shitting a golden egg on top of the ticket or something? I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Sorry,
just wanted to come in very, very quickly. And as well as the ticket price, if you go to these arenas now, the cost of getting food and drink is enormous. It's going up and up. I mean, in London now, it's £8.50 for a beer. It's £3.50 for a water. I mean, it's just getting ridiculous. Anyway, Johan, go ahead.
So beers were already $9 before I moved to Spain at shows that I was going to. Parking for a lot of these arenas are over $100 right now for one parking space. So all of it is really expensive. Water here, when I went to Sonosphere, and we're going back to now, it's going to be 11 years. Water was already €9 at the time, and it wasn't nowhere. It was one of these 500 milliliter bottles.
Yeah.
So what they have done here, though, is that they're forced to provide free water if the temperature is over a certain amount by law. They now have to give out free water. So, Johan, I was going to go to you before.
Yeah.
You had a few things. Go ahead.
For us that don't speak English every day, this is perhaps a stupid question, but hedge fund.
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Jeremy, what is a hedge fund? Explain to Johan.
Simple.
They're just investors, basically, who have a lot of money.
Yeah. Investors.
Yeah.
So just a word. Thank you.
Yeah. No problem. We're here to, again, quality music discussions. We're here to help on all levels to further the discussion. I think we would probably all agree that we hope that this changes. As a kid, I remember Ticketron being a company, Ticketmaster buying Ticketron, then Live Nation coming along and buying Ticketmaster, and seeing Ticketmaster come over to Europe and thinking, shit, they're going to fuck everything up here as well. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Live Nation, I think, owns them in the United States. They own a lot of these venues. So since Live Nation owns a venue, they get to use their service. There are alternatives. There's AXS, Access Tickets. And then locally, like, in Hollywood for the clubs, they have like Ticket Web. So there are other venues or other alternates for ticket servicing, but they just don't choose to do it because I think the venue is under Live Nation, and well, that's where you get screwed. But with Brad's wife making a lot of money this weekend, why wouldn't they're going to charge the money? So as long as people are paying for them, they're going to do it. So Jeremy summed it up. So you don't go, but you go, and it's the Disneyland effect, man. That the people keep going, so they're going to raise the rates.
Yeah. No, totally, completely. And I mean, I understand both sides of the argument, because on the one hand, it's great and it's easy. We don't go, they don't make money, they lower the price. But then at the same time, I understand people that say, shit, I really want to go see live music, and my only chance to see it is this concert or this festival or whatever. So I don't think either side of the argument is wrong with that. Ultimately, people have to do what they think is best for them. And we could just hope that this somehow miraculously changes. But I said this when I saw that they were in Congress already.
Right.
My first thought was, well, I see that a lot of Congress people are going to be getting a lot of free tickets in the not too distant future. So
yeah, that's amazed me that all these years there's been so much corruption in Ticketmaster that goes back when I was standing in line at Music Plus and the Warehouse Records back in the old days on Sunday mornings to get my tickets and to be first in line. There was corruption back then with the venues, the local outlet there. They would take those first couple of tickets, even though I was first in line. You'd hear the ping in the bottom of the bin. If you're old like me, you know what I'm talking about. And those tickets would go in that envelope, bye, and that would go to whoever's scalping. And, you know, this has just been going on for forever.
Yeah.
And now they're hilariously looking into a Ticketmaster for what they're up to with fees and now able to control bots. We as the consumer already know this. It's laughable.
Yeah. Absolutely. It took Taylor Swift. Just remember that. It took... and you know what this is going to boil down to? Similar to the whole PMRC situation. It was probably some senator or congressperson's kids who got fucked out of getting tickets. So it became a big stink. And that's why they're looking into it. Not for any other reason. Because like you're saying, Dan, it's been like this for 40 years at least. Right. And not only that, but I mean, if you look into tickets, you probably should look into the whole entire industry and seeing how corrupt it is from top to bottom, from labels to managers to this to that. And I'm not saying that about everyone, but we all know that there's bad apples everywhere. So here's to them actually making a difference and helping people out. We'll see.
Yeah, that's not what our government does, though. But anyway, we won't make this a political discussion.
Right. Yeah, we've only got so much time. So if not, that would be a 24-hour telethon episode.
But I got to say something about what Dan was saying about even the old days. Okay, 1984, Iron Maiden, they were coming here. We went. Spent the night there at the arena, got in line. They handed out random numbers, and that's how you were selected. So even if you were there all night, you could have got just as good a place as the guy that just walked up. I was number 4, okay? 4 to buy tickets at the arena. I'm at the arena. You could buy 4 max. I walk up there, best seats, 3rd row. There was only 3 people ahead of me that could buy 4 tickets. Only 12 tickets were sold. And somehow the first 2 rows are gone. Where did they go? Okay.
to the and I'll tell you how that works.
No, I know how it works. Actually, I know that they get pulled because I have a buddy who knows somebody in the ticket agency. And he's just like, hey, you ever want good seats? Let me know. He says, I can hit them up, and they usually got like the first couple of rows sitting aside.
Well, and besides that, before the tickets go out, they usually go to, okay, so who's the biggest sponsor of the arena? It's California's best bank. So X amount of tickets go to them. And then those tickets are given to free to the largest account holders. And that's how they trickle everything down. And then, hey, you're in luck. You're going to have great seats. Oh, great, front row? No, almost. You're 60 rows back.
Yeah.
No. All right. So next topic here is something that Mark Striegel called way back when. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that since he's on Ozzy's Boneyard. But Ozzy has retired from touring. And I will preface this by saying that Mr. Striegel was speculating when he said this. And I think a lot of us were also speculating that given Ozzy's health, the operation, so on and so forth, that he would eventually retire. I mean, obviously, given his age and everything that they've been saying health-wise, I wonder how much these shows that he's doing for the BBC is also played into this. Maybe they've given them enough money that it's close to what the tour would net them. Also, Jeremy, the tour was supposed to be what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, may have even been 4 years ago. I think I bought a ticket actually for the original show, which I think was 4 years ago, and then I kept it for 2 years. Then I sold it because I thought they kept cancelling it. I think he cancelled it 3 or 4 times, and then I was going to probably go this year if it was on. I was going to sort of repurchase my ticket, and then now we know it's off.
Yeah.
Feel sad about it in some ways because obviously it's the end of Ozzy touring. But he said that he hasn't given up the prospect of playing one-off shows.
Right.
But the guy's an old man. He's very unwell. I don't think he will play live again. I think he's really, really struggling with his health. A man of 74 who's had a life. Let's face it.
Yeah.
He ain't going to get any better. We know that.
Right.
He's only going to get worse from now on, not better.
Yeah. And I also wonder if maybe there's something to do with insurance, where maybe, hey, you can't push this off any further. We won't cover this beyond 2023. So it's
there may well have been that. I mean, I wouldn't rule out the fact he might even do one more album. He may, because he obviously music's his life. He wants to continue in some way. So he may do that. He may do a one-off show possibly where he just sort of stands on a pole, stuck to a pole.
Right.
Who wants to see that? He's not singing, he's not moving. You're better off seeing a 3D version of Ozzy.
Well, you're jumping ahead. We'll get to that in a second.
Okay. So it's sad because we all loved him in his heyday, but his heyday is long gone. And okay, he's still making a bit of music, which is fine. If you like it, that's great. That's okay. But it's all over.
Yeah. Dan, your thoughts on Ozzy retiring from the road?
Well, you can treat your body a little better than that. So, I mean, Ozzy obviously knows what he's done over the years to himself and miraculously has lived this life so in a sort of well in this age and whatever. It's sad that somebody can get a disease and die from cancer at 40-something and Ozzy can snort ants or do as much coke and whatever and get to where he's got. But so it doesn't make any sense, I guess. Some people can drink and get away with it and others can't. But my thought, I mean, it's not a surprise. Ozzy was great to see live. Kids, if you didn't get to, sorry you missed out. But I think the headline takes away from the other part of the little liner on the note is, Ozzy could play at a venue, if health permitting, 10 shows in a row at Wembley or 10 shows in a row at Vegas. So there's that, as long as he can. So it's no surprise.
That's something I didn't even think of, like one of these residencies where he doesn't have to travel. He could have all the doctors and everything that he needs in one spot.
Can I just say that's never going to happen. He's just not well enough to do it. He might do a one-off show. I agree. He might do a couple of shows in the same area, and he has made that excuse that he can't travel. But I cannot see him doing 10 shows, 10 nights running, or even with a day off in between. He is not a well man. He's very, very old and very, very frail. It's just not going to happen. He can't. I mean, none of us here could stand on stage for 2 hours and do a concert. And this is a guy who's incredibly unwell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sadly, Sadly, his person, his handlers are going to say, that there's going to be a report that Ozzy is in ill condition, and they're going to say, "Oh no, it's not true," and that's when you kind of know that shit's finally happened.
Yeah, Antonio is saying that Sharon just bought Ozzy an exoskeleton. So
Yeah, that word is okay, Antonio. That's a good word.
Yeah.
Exoskeletons. Yeah.
Brad, your take.
I don't know. I just hope he's happy. That's all. That's all I can say. I mean, I kind of finished going to see Ozzy a while ago just because it wasn't that great, and I don't like to see guys up there not being able to do what they want to do. It's tough for me to see that. If they're still able to get it done and have put on a good show, then I'm there.
Okay. Johan, your take on Ozzy.
I saw him at Sweden Rock 2018, and it was, quite embarrassing to see. So that he decided to stop touring is good for him, good for us, and it's
not good for Ticketmaster.
No, but they can handle it. Yeah. So no, it's good. I mean, Ozzy, he don't have to prove anything to anyone anymore. So that's one of the best ever. So it's better that he stays at home his last years of his life and take care of his family and his kids. That's the best thing. Absolutely.
Okay. And Ozzy obviously has had a much more successful career than Ronnie James Dio had. Dio tried with the hologram, but Sharon and Ozzy have enough money to take that to a whole different level, I would think. Is Ozzy going to be the first big name to actually go out and do one of these big hologram things where they kick the door open for people? I mean, if it's not Ozzy, I mean, I would think it would be Kiss or it would be AC/DC or someone on that level that just is got a huge fan base as is, has a lot of money to really throw at it and really do a big show out of it. Do you guys think the next step is going to be Ozzy the hologram? Dan, what do you think?
If it's not Ozzy, it's McCartney. I haven't seen the hologram thing. Sure, it's a definite possibility. It's weird though that you had the connection from last week where Kiss has got this post-Kiss band plan and Ozzy's just on his own, so there is no replacement. I don't see a reason to do a hologram.
Okay. Brad?
I don't know that holograms are really going to take off because they've been around for how long now? And I guess they could get better, but they still haven't moved the needle. I mean, people aren't lining up to see a hologram. And I haven't talked to anybody who's been to one of those shows who thought it was great. And so, yeah, I'm not going to spend more than $10 to go see a hologram.
Okay. Johan?
No. Don't find it not interesting at all. No.
Okay. Jeremy, what do you think? Ozzy hologram?
I think there's room for these sort of hologram shows once they've passed away, because I think it's the only way you're going to see them, and they've gone, and it's a bit of a legacy kind of thing. And also, you've got to bear in mind that the ABBA show, which I don't think was a hologram, but it's a kind of that kind of show, has been very, very successful in London, although it was extremely expensive to put on. I think, was it Benny or Bjorn? One of them was actually putting it on, and they wanted to make sure they could get enough tickets because it it was so expensive to do. But people I've spoken to who've been to the show said it was absolutely fantastic. The problem with the Dio show, I think, was that they only played for a certain time period. They only played certain amount of songs, so it wasn't, the sort of show that people were expecting to pay for. I think if you were going to play, for a couple of hours and see them play along, for the full couple of hours, then it's worthwhile. But I think it didn't turn out that way. So, they're going to have to think about how they do it. And I think they can get it right. I think if Kiss did it, it would be a big success in America, certainly.
I think Jeremy's got it.
No.
I think Jeremy's got it.
No, I think this is where the tribute bands come in. And that's a whole nother, we'll have to say that for a whole nother show. There's some huge tribute bands out there that are touring and making big ass money.
Right.
And I think that's where they're going to take over. There's this one tribute band called Foreigner. No.
Well, but Jeremy, to your point, the Dio Disciples played here with the hologram. They played 50 minutes, and it was Ripper Owens and Oni Logan and the hologram, and people were very pissed off that it was less than an hour. If it were, because the singer doesn't have to rest, because you're flip-flopping singers, and sure, there are certain songs where they trade vocals off and whatnot, but the person that undergoes the most amount of punishment, the singer, can rest for a certain amount of time. They can theoretically rest for 20 minutes during a show, or half an hour or whatever. So I think more people were upset with that than the actual technology. Go ahead, Dan.
What Jeremy said about ABBA is correct. It did at least work, and their advertisers playing these lame Grammy Awards this weekend. And they're not going to be, that's going to be the hologram, I assume.
Wow. That's crazy. I think I've said this all along. I think Kiss could pull it off, but it would have to be like a storytellers type thing, where Gene or Paul come out and say, hey, when we wrote this song, this is, the riff that we came up with. This is, they explain the song a little, and then they show, like, they have like some classic footage, some classic black and white footage on like a big screen where they show them playing it in their heyday. Then they show part of the Love Gun tour. Then they show, if they cut back and forth to different parts of their career and they set all the stuff up, I think people will go crazy for that. Now, unfortunately, I don't know if they plan on doing that, and I guess we'll see as all this stuff evolves. But
has anybody seen what Carl Palmer's doing with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, where he's going out with a band, but yet he's playing with actual videos of Greg Lake and Keith Emerson?
Right. I didn't know. I knew that he was doing some type of a tribute, but I wasn't sure. Okay.
Yeah, it's you should check it out. There's stuff on YouTube you can see. It's pretty interesting. It's an interesting concept because it's live musicians and then it's not live musicians, but it's video. And he's got big screens up behind him. He's in the center playing drums, playing live, and playing along with everything.
Right.
And I would see that being more successful than, let's say Jason Bonham's been doing this for a long time with his Zeppelin thing. He has a band, but he's got also video screens of his dad and stuff going on. And I haven't seen it, so I can't really speak to what it's like, his Led Zeppelin experience thing, but I see that being more successful because you have like real musicians playing.
Right.
And I don't know.
Okay. Another topic here. See if we can cram this into 10 minutes or so. The biggest trolls in the universe, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, has announced their list of inductees for this year. I'm just going to focus on the 3 hard rock metal acts that are being nominated. Iron Maiden is being nominated for the second time. Rage Against the Machine for the 5th time, I believe. And
how are they not in?
What's that?
How are they not in? I thought Tom Morello was like one of the.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising, and maybe that's the reason why they're not in, because he doesn't want them to feel like they're in because he's part of the committee.
Okay.
And I also think if you hear Morello talk, he's a huge Dio fan, he's a huge Iron Maiden fan, a huge Kiss fan. He inducted Kiss, stuff like that. So he's cognizant of a lot of what came before him. And Soundgarden, I believe, has been nominated 4 times, but they're not letting all of these in this year. There's no way. It would make too much sense to do that. You could talk about which band merits it more or not. I do think that each one of these bands was groundbreaking in their own way, important in their own way. I don't think that Rage or Soundgarden are as influential as Iron Maiden was, but I don't want to take away from the musicianship and stuff that they've done as well. Dan, do we see Iron Maiden in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or either one of these 2 bands this year? I'm thinking that one of these 3 will go in. Which do you think goes in?
I'm not a fan of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at all, but I would assume Rage would be in, even though Maiden's on tour and that's more important, and Maiden doesn't care about it.
Okay. Brad?
I'm gonna go wild on this and say that Iron Maiden gets in, just because every so often they throw out a cookie to the people who are all pissed off, and so I think they try to do that every year. It's like, well, the Priest, okay, it was last year, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, let's get Iron Maiden in there and make all those people shut up, and and then we can put in a bunch of other bands that were really nobodies. And
well, the president has said that they felt that Judas Priest was a big success, and that they hope that that they've opened the door so bands like Iron Maiden do get in. So I don't know. We'll see whatever that's worth. Johan, do you think Iron Maiden gets in? I know that this isn't a big deal in Sweden at all. We've talked about this a bunch of times.
Sure, why not? I'm in. That would be the best band. But as you said, it's not a thing at all here in Sweden. So we only read about it in social media and so. So no, I don't know. Maiden, of course.
Okay.
Hey, they put Russia in there.
Oh, a long time ago.
Of course they did. Of course.
They couldn't even screw that up, right?
I mean, Rush is. It's. They always should be in every.
Every
Rush
Hall
is
of
Rush.
Fame.
Yeah, Rush is Rush.
Regardless whether it's music, sport, or anything else. Jeremy, do we see Maiden get in?
I guess Iron Maiden might get in, but I don't think anybody cares at all. No one in the UK cares about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. No one ever discusses it. I don't know where it is. I don't know who's in it. I've heard of it. I hear every year that these bands are going in it. And I don't think it matters at all to their careers. Iron Maiden don't care because nobody cares. If it closes, it closes. If it stays open, it stays open. I don't know what it is. Tell me what it is.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is one of the biggest shams ever. I've been there twice, and I've never gone in. The one time that I went, they were closing. So they said, "Oh, we're closing in half an hour." And I said, "Okay, well, how much can I see in half an hour?" Hardly anything. It'll take you a few hours to get through everything. I'm like, if I walk quickly, will I be able to see anything? Well, no, how about you come back tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of planning on just passing through. I'm not coming back to Cleveland tomorrow. The second time that we went, we went with ample time, got to the ticket booth, and we said, okay, we want to buy 2 tickets to get in. They were like, okay, it's $20 plus handling fees. I'm like, $20? Are you kidding me? So I was like, okay, I can see the cars that U2 used during the Achtung Baby and Zooropa tour hanging from the ceiling. I can see part of Pink Floyd's Wall. I can see some of the Ramones' leather jackets. We went to the bathroom and I got to see Michael Anthony's Jim Beam bass
in the bathroom
like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm not paying fucking $20 to go and see this stuff when I can go to a Hard Rock and see similar stuff and I don't have to pay shit for it. You know? So yeah, so we never ended up going in. And it said, no pictures or whatever, and we ended up taking pictures, but they have a record store there. Shit, I remember FYE they had there. FYE, when I lived in the States, was the most expensive record store you could go to. So CDs were on sale for $22. I remember Pink Floyd's The Wall was like $60. I'm like, seriously, I can buy this anywhere else for like 20, without looking for it at a discount store. It's just unbelievable. So I think because eventually they're going to run out of bands to induct. Let's be honest. Sure, Rage Against the Machine, Soundgarden, you've got bands like that, but Pearl Jam is already in, Nirvana's in. They've never nominated Alice in Chains. They've never nominated Motley Crue, Bon Jovi, Poison, Motorhead, Boston. There's like 40 to 50 rock related bands that should be in that haven't been nominated, stuff along those lines. Yeah, it amazes me that, again, I think this gets more notoriety because of the fact that they troll everyone every year more than anything else. And obviously, no one knows about it here. No one knows about it in the UK or Sweden. And we're talking about, the UK and Sweden probably being two of the biggest countries when it comes to music and entertainment in general. So if it doesn't mean shit there, then should it mean anything anywhere? So, real quickly before I switch over to Mr. Czynszak, who is already waiting, but either his camera isn't on or he's having the same difficulties as Anthony Mackie. Did anyone get to hear the new LA Guns track? Jeremy, you shared the link. Brad got to hear it. Jeremy, your thoughts on the track?
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it had a bit of a Led Zeppelin vibe to it. The riff sounded very Zeppelin-y. I can't say I'm a massive fan of LA Guns, really, or I like some of their stuff in the past, but not everything. But I really like this, so I thought it was good. But obviously, their albums can be quite mixed, so we'll wait and see whether it's indicative of the album or whether it's just one of the tracks on it. And it could be quite a mixed album.
Yeah, Brad, what did you think?
Well, that was good. Yeah, and I'm not a big LA Guns guy either. Although recently I've listened to more of them, getting more up to speed. They do have a lot of decent music, and so yeah, I'm excited to hear the rest of the album.
Okay,
bring it.
Dan, did you get to hear the track?
The Heavy Metal Hall of Fame is a thing here in California. Somebody created. You can look into that. And Twisted Sister reunited and played last week, and that didn't get any airplay. Screw the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. No, I did not hear the LA Guns track and didn't know. I will look it up.
Okay, awesome. Johan, did you get to hear the track? And no, okay. I will say that I have been a fan since the first album. I would put that first album up against Appetite for Destruction, Van Halen 1, and almost anything you can throw at me from the LA Strip. So to me, that's one of my favorite albums of all time, and I think it's a seriously overlooked album. So the day that we do a countdown of top Sunset Strip bands or albums from that era, that will be high on my list. So
I'm going to listen to that album, man. How can I not after that ringing endorsement?
The self-titled debut to me is flawless, beginning to end.
I want to hear that podcast.
That will be. We'll have to do that soon because we've done thrash, we've done, and we got to look at other genres. So I think that will be a good one to do. We did new wave of British heavy metal. We'll probably do UK bands in general at one point as well to make it not as confusing for people.
Sounds good.
So there's plenty of good stuff on the horizon.
Need to do top Swedish bands as well sometime.
Top Swedish band, that's another thing that I've thought of as well.
Yes. Let's do it.
So hopefully sometime this year. Now why can't I see him?
Yeah, can you bring in Chris and we can all say hi and then you can make us go away?
Yeah, the thing is he's completely black.
He wants to be. That is the blackest. That is the darkest of color. Is black. You can't get any more blacker than black.
He's back in black.
He's 50 shades of black.
There you go. Chris, are you talking? Let's see
Fade
if
to black, Chris. Fade to black.
Yes, let's see if your mic is working. Maybe you didn't give permission within your browser to
reboot.
Oh, and you're using, I think you told me yesterday that you're using Firefox. I don't know if you have Chrome. Try Chrome because that seems to give the least amount of problems.
You think he's never done one of these things before?
He's been on plenty of times.
Does he give you a hard time too?
I know. It's like, I mean, he's not even old like me. He should be able to do this. Come on, Chris. You're a young man.
Let's see if we scared him away.
He's gonna flip you off when he comes on.
Yeah, we're gonna have like a whole nother hour of us then. Quick, Jeremy, dig up some new topics.
Yeah.
Well, that's usually how it happens.
The Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, is it a real thing?
Oh, I'll let you guys know in on my interaction with the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. Years ago when I was doing the Ear Peeler site. There we go. Now we can see Mr. Czynszak.
Now you can flip him off.
Hey, Chris.
There you go.
Okay.
So the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, when I was doing Ear Peeler, they posted a video of some sorts, and I picked it up, and I said, hey, this is a cool idea, so I'm going to repost it. And they contacted me and said, please take that down. That's not supposed to be out there. I'm like, you guys have it on your YouTube site. And they ended up saying, right, it's out there, but it's not supposed to post until tomorrow. So please remove it. So I removed it. And they were like, hey, if you ever want to come or whatever, just let me know. And I'm like, well, I'm in Europe. I think that's going to cost a pretty penny. And I never heard back. So that's my story there. Yeah, I think it's a cool idea, but I don't know. I guess do we need a physical Heavy Metal Hall of Fame?
That's kind of what we got here, isn't it?
Yeah, well, kind of. But I mean, getting back to what I said before with the hard rock in comparison to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, would it be cooler than the hard rock? Would it make more sense for something like the hard rock to get behind it and just kind of make a museum that's part of a casino or something like that? You know,
Do it in Vegas.
Yeah, do it in Vegas. They've got, you know, memorabilia and stuff that'll already blow most people's minds that are into that stuff. And, you know, I would think that they would probably, and no disrespect to the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, because I do think it's a great idea, but I think you need that kind of money to do it proper.
If Gene Simmons can have his used socks on display in Vegas, I think they can handle a Heavy Metal Hall of Fame.
Where do they have his used socks at the Kiss golf thing?
No, Gene Simmons has his own museum now in Las Vegas.
No shit, I didn't know that.
It's all the crap that was in his office on the Family Jewels show, and they just moved it to Vegas, and now you can pay money to see, you know, whatever iteration of Hello Kitty Kiss shit that you want to watch.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
Cool. So we can now find Gene's stiff socks from when Shannon asked him not to come to bed that night.
Well, I think that was mainly for vault buyers, but I think they had a few left over.
The world's worst tea bag.
There you go. Real quickly, anybody want to throw a question at Mr. Czynszak?
Are you
I will
excited?
permit one question.
Okay. Are you ready to go for ROCKNPOD?
No.
Okay, good.
No, I won't be ready until probably 3 days after it's over, but that's how it is every time.
Dan, go ahead.
I'm sort of a fan of Jason Green's podcast and what he does. Most of the times he gets it right. He's been talking about this Rockin' podcast, kind of making fun, and him and Han saying he's going to go or he's waiting for an invite. Do you have anything to say about that I'm not going to share with Jason?
Sure, you're not.
No, I'm not.
No,
I'm a saint.
I like Jason. I like his show. I did extend an invite to him to come out to it, but I think he was kind of wanting like the full red carpet treatment with hotels and flights and everything covered. And we are not a corporately backed event, so we have to be pretty selective in how much money we can dole out for travel and stuff. And I'd love to see him in Monaco because I do love their show, but I just don't think we could make it work this time.
Okay. Jeremy, any questions for Mr. Czynszak?
Yeah, any great bands you've heard lately who we've not heard of?
There's one I got into recently, and then my fellow podcasting friend Baco would hate this because he denounces Spotify at every turn. But and I buy plenty of physical product, as you can see behind me. But it's to me, Spotify is great for discovery. So I'll typically find a band I normally listen to, and then I'll just let it keep playing, and it'll auto pick, stuff that they think you would like. And I discovered a band called Andy and the Rockets, and I'd never heard of them till like 2 weeks ago. And it's not heavy metal at all. It's more rootsy rock, I guess you would call it. But if you can get into them, and also there's another band that was like really, I was listening to a ton last year from Oklahoma called Red City Radio, and I would highly recommend you check them out.
Okay. Brad, is there writing away at the moment?
I'm furiously writing away. Yes, I'm going to check both these bands out.
Okay. I hope
Thanks,
you like
Chris. I respect your opinion.
Well, I appreciate you respecting it. That's very kind of you.
Johan, any questions for Chris?
Mm-hmm. Chris, how is your opinion on the current state of Swedish metal for now? I mean, at this moment now.
Well, I haven't dove in on a lot of the newer stuff lately, but I mean, plenty of stuff that comes out of there, like Eclipse and was it the Cruel Intentions? Are they from Sweden? I'm not sure if they are or not, but their latest record was one of my top records of the year. As long as it's the melodic stuff, I don't get into too much of the Cookie Monster stuff. But yeah, Sweden's definitely producing most of the type of stuff that I like these days, it seems. And Germany's actually got a few bands that are pretty cool that are coming out.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you.
So on that note, Jeremy, Dan, Brad, Johan, thank you very much once again for joining us for the Hour 1 show. And the podcast will be available in about a week. We'll see you guys. Hang out in the chat and throw any other questions that you have at us. So
Have fun, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. So, you haven't been busy lately. You don't have anything going on, right?
Not a care in the world, man.
We are officially roughly 40 days out from ROCKNPOD?
Something like 41 or 42, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it get any easier from here on out?
No, not really. I mean, we're getting a lot of this week has been kind of hell week for a lot of stuff with the interview process starting to get scheduled now. When Tracy takes over that, I have to kind of come to the plate with a lot of stuff getting wrapped up. So that includes the panel schedule, who's going to be on them, who's going to moderate them. And I'm also working with a guy, David Hooper here, who he's rounding up everybody for the podcast education track. So, and some of that includes some of the podcasters that are going to be there. Mm-hmm. So their schedule has to get worked out. And then of course, a lot of stuff like getting banners designed, getting carpet for certain areas, budgeting for your stage and all your stuff like that. It's a lot of the little minute details, and they add up in your head and kind of drive you crazy. But I think if I want, probably in another week, I'll calm down a little bit more. If it's just promotion, I'm happy to do that. But yeah, it's all the grunt work that I don't want to do. And I've got a lot of cool people helping me, including my wife. So and you, right. Of course, you've been, I've been loading you up with website stuff to deal with. But yeah, we're getting there. I'll probably feel good. I think I'll feel better in about a week.
Okay. What's the hardest part of doing all this?
Right now it's just it's just I tend to get wrapped up in my own head too much. So I'll overthink everything, and I've always had a bad habit of being kind of a glass half empty person. So it's like things always end up turning out fine, but I always like picture the worst things happening. But
right.
I mean, it's honestly, the process has gone fairly smooth this time. And it's just that it gets bigger every year. So as it gets bigger, that there's that much more pressure, and you want everyone to have a good time, and you want schedules to work out right. And there's obviously going to be some stuff that will go wrong. That's just the way it goes. But it's just the pressure of everything in general. But my wife and the team have really helped take a lot of stress off my shoulders, so that helps.
Okay. And as far as, for example, you mentioned the education track, that's something that you brought in a few years after the inception of ROCKNPOD. Why is that so important?
Well, I mean, we're never going to compete with Podcast Movement as far as being a trade show type event, but at the same time, I've noticed there's a lot of people that are either brand new to podcasting that come to this thing, or that want to start one and have no idea how. And, we had people that were meeting each other in year 1 and year 2, and then they figured it out and wound up starting a show together. So I was just kind of like, we should try to, produce some added value for podcasters and people that want to be podcasters. So we just add an education track where we have some speakers, and I want the industry part of, because the industry's taken off so much over the last few years that it's like kind of like you want to tap into that a little bit. I don't want to become a stuffy conference. Not that I'm putting down Podcast Movement or anything, but the big thing with ROCKNPOD is it's fun, but at the same time, I want people to walk away with feeling like they got something out of it for their shows. Right. So that's the long and short of it, really.
Okay. And that's interesting because earlier this week, there was a big headline that said 80% of, or there's 80% less new shows out there, new podcasts. Is podcasting dying?
Nah,
And
that's all because of the pandemic.
yeah, absolutely. And it was
Yeah.
funny because that was the first thing I thought of, because when the pandemic happened and everyone had a new show, every band, every actor, because it was
They had
another way.
nothing else to do.
They had nothing else to do, another way of getting your name out there. And in some cases, labels were forcing bands to do podcasts to continue to feed the market, basically. Now that things are slowly, come all the way back almost to 100%, obviously 80% of those shows aren't being done because you don't have people that are serious in doing this stuff. You have very few, like probably the artist that made the most amount of money out of all of this was Matt Heafy of Trivium, which was obviously his daily Twitch show. He's still doing Twitch from the road, so he's making enough money to do that. But how many other artists are doing this stuff that they were doing daily shows, or they're doing weekly shows? There's very few of them. I know Rob Flynn of Machine Head was another one, but once they went on tour, that all pretty much dried up.
His stopped too? I didn't know.
I haven't heard much about it. I mean, I don't follow it, so I could be completely wrong, but I haven't heard anything about it in a while. So,
well, I mean, it's a combination of things. I mean, there's, of course, there is. Honestly, I think it's more of a sign of a healthy platform that's growing, because to have that many people start one is a big deal. So, but at the same time, as you and I both know, if you want, even if you want it to succeed on a micro scale, you have to really put the time and effort into doing it. So, so you will have people that are like, oh, that sounds fun, it'll be easy, and then they see how much work it is, and then they're like, oh, and now I got 25 listens, I'm not going to do that. That's always going to be part of the situation, because anyone can do it. But then there's, with the musicians and people like that, then with them, it's probably they're busy writing albums and going back on the road. So it's just a combination of stuff. But no, I expected that dip to happen, of course, because podcast gear sales exploded in 2020. It's just everyone started buying gear.
Right. Yeah, now's probably a good time to buy used gear, actually.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you can find tons of it.
Yeah, I've had plenty of conversation. Hey, I used to have, I sold several platinum albums, so I'm going to be making tons of money off of this. And saying, well, you really got to work at it. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case for me. And you see that they end up doing 10 shows and quit, because it's what you said. It's, it's 25 listens, and then they realize, hey, maybe this isn't what I expected. And for a lot of people, for a lot of artists, maybe if you're doing this stuff on your own, you don't have a band around you, you don't have a producer, you don't have anyone kind of steering you. You're kind of relying on yourself, and maybe you're not that interesting to begin with. Maybe well, that's the thing. I've heard some of these shows, and one thing is if people interview others, like Ryan Roxy, for example, kind of reaches out. Ryan Roxy's like almost like a Josh Toomey on a different scale, because obviously he's in Alice Cooper's band.
Sure.
So he comes across a lot of people. So he can pull from, people that have like a great number of credentials, let's say. So he goes about it in a smart way, where we've seen others where it's, okay, this podcast has my name, I'm going to talk about me on episode 1, episode 2. It's all about me. So it gets to a point where it's like, okay, we need more than this.
Well, sorry to cut you off. I tell people all the time that are musicians, I'm like, look at what Ron Keel does with his, like with his Patreon and with his shows. he should be the kind of the standard for what you try to do, because the amount of engagement that he has with his audience and the sound quality and like everything, even the artwork, the show notes, everything he does is full bore and professional, and he's good on a mic too. I mean, that's also, it all does come down to that. If you sound like Ben Stein and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, then you're not going to have people stay very long listening to you, because you'll just drone on and on, which is that's why I don't know why anyone continues to listen to me. I think it's all Aaron that people come back for, but yeah. But no, a lot of artists do that. And I think record companies got smart by having some of them start doing it. Not all of them are going to succeed, but it just shows the power of what the platforms become, that they're even going that route and saying, hey, do a podcast,
Right. No, I agree with you 100%. Getting back to Rockin' Pod. Look at that. Jeremy saying, rubbish. You're both great at it. I would do a British accent for you, but I can't do Jeremy's accent. So
me neither.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think how many of the guests that you guys have had over the years that are from the musician side actually have a podcast. I mean, obviously Don Jameson has a podcast. But the musicians themselves, how many of them have had shows, or how many of them, while at Rockin' Pod, have contemplated, hey, maybe this is something that I could do? Actually, Ricky Rackman's another one that had a show.
Carmine and Vinny, who came last year, they had their own show, although I think they've put that one to a stop because they're back on the road again. For them, it was more of a way to fill time and to stay connected to their fans. And I always love their show because they just bust each other's balls for 2 hours, which is always funny. But I hope they bring it back. But not for this year. Obviously, Ron, Monty Colvin, he's been doing it longer than all of us have. And then who else? Well, I mean, it's funny. We Tracy, who works with the scheduling, she was talking to Jason McMaster, because we're bringing Jason and Dave Glessner and his co-host with Talk Louder, and we were going to have them in the guest area with all the other artists. And oh, no, we want to just come and be podcasters. Put us in there with the podcasters. So they're going to be right in the middle of all the rest of us. So I thought that was actually cool on their part, that they want to be in the podcast area.
Yeah, that's awesome. I recently reconnected with him because of his the band Cash is King he's in. And Jason is one of these guys that like knows everybody.
Yeah.
And you talk to him and it's like talking to one of your buddies. It's just so cool. So that doesn't surprise me at all that's the that's how he would approach it.
And he was kind of like, I don't know that we even want to be interviewed by anybody. We just want to come and record stuff all day. I was like, okay. I was like, well, I need you to do a few interviews with people, because people are hoping for that.
Right.
But yeah, he's quite a character. He called me like a week ago and was definitely behind the scenes stuff. But it was funny because when you're an organizer for something like this, especially with this many moving parts and guests, anytime like one of your guest calls, you immediately think, oh boy, what's wrong?
Right.
Who's canceling or what did we do wrong? And I missed the call because I was on a conference call with my day job, and I texted him and I was like, hey, I'll call you right back. He goes, all good, no problem. And I call him back, and he goes, well, just letting you know, this isn't a call that you have to sit down for. And it was like, I was like, oh, good. And he was like, it was just about like, are they going to be able to bring a banner and hang a banner and stuff like that? And I was he was like, and we're all good. He's like, don't worry. He's like, the amount of different venues I've played, I can make anything work with fishing line and duct tape. Don't worry about it. I was like, okay, cool. But he's so very down to earth. There's no ego with him at all.
Yeah. It was funny how all of this is a small world, because the band Cash is King that he was doing the interview for, Dan Lorenzo, who's the guitarist in that, used to be in a band in several bands with the person that I interviewed last week with Alan Tecchio. And we started talking about the fact that John Bush mentioned last time I interviewed him, he was wearing a Hades t-shirt. I'm like, oh, I know the guys from Hades. I talked to Dan and Alan and this and that. And he's like, me and Alan were pen pals. And then, and then Jason mentioned that, he initiated his relationship with the Armored Saint guys because he was John Bush's pen pal as well. So last week when I brought that up to Alan, he goes, yeah, the three of us used to write stuff back and forth to one another. We all three of us were pen pals. Like, that was the way of connecting with people way back when. So that's kind of interesting that in a way, podcasting is almost like the modern day evolution of that, where people just sit down and like you and me right now, just talk about music, talk about different things. For, obviously when you're writing letters, it's kind of personal to back and forth. So maybe it's not an apples to apples comparison, but
Right.
it's just so interesting to hear that connection between all those guys and similar to what I mentioned with Ryan Roxy and with Toomey before. Again, I kind of brain farted there and forgot about Jason having his show, but it's kind of the same deal. He knows so many people that, and he is such a genuine person that the conversations that you hear with him, they to me, they always suck me in. So
Yeah. And that's the best kind of podcasting to me, is just be yourself. And, that's why I tell people, ask me for advice on starting a show, which I always tell them on the equipment end, don't ask me, because I started 12 years ago and my knowledge is way outdated.
right.
But I always tell them, don't focus. I mean, if it's cool to sound professional, that's good, but also, don't lose your soul where you're not expressing your own real thoughts and opinions. Obviously, you don't want to go overboard. But and that was one thing, when I finally kind of got comfortable with just being me and not trying to be something I'm not, I've enjoyed it a lot more through that, and there's times where you do have to kind of amp yourself up a little bit because you're not feeling it when it's time to record, and so that, you'll put it on a little bit, but for the most part, what you hear is what you get. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people from a gear standpoint really make mistakes and dump a lot of money into where you don't need it, because if you don't know if you're going to be in it for the long haul or not, it doesn't make sense to, put a lot of money into it. I started by buying a good gaming headset and that had a decent mic and using that until, I started evolving and changing, the gear that I had. For a lot of people that with other shows that I've done, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to go out, I'm going to buy this $500 mic. I'm like, yeah, just hold off, buy.
I mean, you get a SM58 used for like $60, and
Right.
I mean, this I'm using here, this is a knockoff 58. It's like a cheap Behringer mic, and but it sounds fine. And it's like, I don't need a Heil PR40. I mean, they sound great, but is it going to sound that much different than this? I'm not on NPR, so it doesn't matter.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ultimately, the person behind the mic is going to add more character. Sure, you can clean it up, you can make it sound better, but ultimately, if what you're doing, I think, isn't captivating to people, what your gear is really doesn't matter.
Not really. No, I mean, it's a balance of a little bit of everything. But
Yeah.
I do tell people, get a decent mic. Don't go crazy buying a Sennheiser or something like that. But get a good $50 to $100 mic, and that's all you need to really get rolling.
You can get, I mean, Rode, for example, put out their pod mic, which I know several people that use it. Costs, well, due to inflation and everything, it's up to about like 110, 120.
It's still not bad.
Yeah, it's still not a bad price at all. The Shure mic, the
SMB,
SMB,
S7B or something. I can't
yeah,
remember which one.
yeah. That also is, I think that's closer to 200, but also that one's more expensive because it's 2 mics in one. It's a USB mic and it is an XLR as well. So
Oh,
depending
really?
on what your gear is. I mean, if you don't want to have any type of board that you're connected to and you just want to go to a computer and you can afford that, I mean, obviously that's the way to go. A lot of companies have USB mics, and a lot of it just has to do with tweaking it and getting the right sound out of it. But it doesn't have to be expensive. You know, once you take off and you fall in love with it, and sure, if you want to have different accoutrements and, you know, every now and then go, look, it's rock and roll. Well, then in that case, you know, there are things you can add to it, but it isn't necessary. You know, that's just for goofs like us that like, you know, doing stuff like that.
I mean, you can dive in later, but make sure you want to stick with it first. That's the main thing. You know,
yes,
get through your first 10 episodes and then look at upgrading your gear.
Right. Absolutely. Don't dump $800 into gear, and then it turns out that, you know, 3 months later you're stuck at, you know, your friends, your family, and a few other people at work, and it hasn't gotten to the point where you want it to be. You know, it's an uphill battle unless, and this is what I've talked to a lot of other people about. Again, going back to Ryan Roxy. Ryan Roxy is in Alice Cooper's band. Joe Rogan, for as big as he is, like him or not, was on Fear Factor.
And news radio also.
News radio, UFC.
Yeah, he was well known.
Yeah, you get somebody that millions upon millions of people know. 1% of that is still a few 100,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's easy to captivate an audience that way. So if you're going into this thinking, oh, well, I want to be the next Eddie Trunk. Well, awesome. Go for it. But realistically, you're competing against somebody that's, you know, what was a DJ in the New York market for a very long time, was syndicated, then went to XM, you know. So there's a lot of factors as to why it's difficult to compare with somebody that's been around that long and in so many major places.
Well, yeah, and Eddie, I mean, if you know his story, I mean, he really scraped from the very bottom to get where he is. So it's not like he was just handed a job on national syndicated radio. He worked his ass off to get where he is.
Believe me, I'm here because of Eddie Trunk, because I was that 12 and 13-year-old that one Friday night was listening to the local metal show from the station that was a mile away from my house. And they said, it's midnight, it's metal news time. And I'm like, metal news? What's this? And, you know, hey, this is Eddie Trunk. And this week, Kiss has announced that. And I'm like, wait a second, what the hell is this? You know, having somebody on the radio, like talking about the stuff that I look through magazines to find out about every week.
Yeah.
And I would get so annoyed because I think there ended up being issues between him and the main host of the show, because a lot of days the show wouldn't be at midnight. She'd be like, oh, I forgot to, you know, include his segment or whatever. And then after a while, she started calling him Dunkin' Donuts boy. He was, oh, Dunkin' Donuts boy will be here in a few minutes to read the metal news.
Oh, wow.
And like 2 years later, Eddie took over the show.
Good for him. You know, I'll have fun. I'll kind of poke fun at Eddie sometimes because he is he does love to name drop and mention who his friends are, and it can get annoying. And I think even he would probably understand that viewpoint. But at the same time, I mean, you can't deny the guy's influence, and you know, he basically has the dream job that all of us wish we had, you know. And I do think some of the hate he gets does come from jealousy. Of course, I'm jealous of Eddie
yeah.
Trunk. I would kill to have his job. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be the ultimate. But no, it's funny. I'll never forget. I'll never forget Aaron getting him annoyed at the Atlanta Kiss Expo in 2018.
Oh yeah.
Where Vinny's on stage doing his Q&A. That was a bizarre thing in itself. And Eddie Trunk is in the very back of the room, and he's got his phone up, and he's live streaming it or whatever. Aaron and me end up standing right next to Eddie, and Aaron's right next to him, literally like a foot away from him. And at one point, Vinny mentions that he had done an interview with Eddie the day before. He goes,
Right.
yeah, I did my interview with Eddie Trunk yesterday, and blah, 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 blah. And of course, everybody starts turning and looking towards Eddie, and Aaron couldn't pass up the chance to go, who the hell's Eddie Trunk? And the look that Eddie gave him was just like, what the hell? And then Aaron's like, I'm just messing with you. That might be my favorite memory of that whole weekend, just because it was so funny.
What did he do after that? When
he laughed after Aaron, laughed about it, but but the look he gave Aaron at first was like, say what?
That's funny. As a kid, as being older, working in the local mall, Eddie would come in all the time, and you could tell Eddie wanted that recognition.
Oh, sure.
You could tell because he was looking around all the time. But yeah, I mean the name dropping. I mean, I think we've all been kind of we've all kind of done it. I have conversations with people and I say, I know the guys from Decibel Geek. There's
And then they say, who is that?
I was talking to my friends from Knotfest, Joshua Toomey, and he said, that would probably be the closest to anything that I could say like that. But yeah, I actually joked with Toomey about that I was going to start name dropping that. I've got friends that work for Slipknot. So
hey, Toomey's a big deal. I know a guy from Primer 55.
Look at that. Shit, I know a guy from 12 Volt Negative Earth.
12 Volt Negative Earth, yeah. And it's funny, I used to go see them play in clubs here long before I ever knew Toomey at all.
Right.
I was a fan.
So Brad is asking which one is Decibel and which one is Geek.
Oh, I'm definitely the geek and Aaron's the Decibel.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the nerdy and he's the loud.
There you go.
Never really looked at it that way, but yeah, that's an easy answer.
Look at that, Dr. Poison. You're coming up with all types of things and breaking new ground. This is like AC and DC now.
Yeah, I had an idea. We should have done it. I had an idea for a shirt design for Decibel Geek, and it would be in the AC/DC font, but it would say AC in the lightning bolt and CC for Aaron Camaro and Chris Czynszak.
Oh wow!
I never went through with putting it on a shirt.
Well,
and we get sued probably too. So.
No, I was going to say, would you have to explain that over and over again to people, though?
Sure. But I mean, look at my last name. I have to explain things over and over again all the time,
Okay. I was just going to say, when things seem to be pretty obvious and easy to figure out, there's always someone who doesn't get things. So,
well, I mean, we're pretty niche people as far as what we do. So it's, anyone who, if I ever see somebody with a Decibel Geek shirt, like at a show out in the wild, that just makes my day. And like what show was I at? I was at the Ryman Sing Tesla, and one of our listeners was there wearing a Decibel Geek shirt, and I was like, nice shirt. And he's like, yeah, I wore it for you because I knew you'd be here. And that's a guy named Shay Hargett who listens every week, but it was like my first time really getting to talk to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've also done that as well. I went to see Overkill and knew that by wearing a Talking Metal t-shirt that somebody would notice and say something about it. So that was Ron Lipnicki, who walked out from the backstage, and he's walking towards the bar and he looks at me and I see him mouthing Talking Metal, like with a perplexed look on his face. Talking Metal. What is somebody in Spain doing with a Talking Metal t-shirt? And I'm like, ding ding, it worked the way that I wanted it to.
Yeah,
So,
that's cool.
yeah. So Rockin' Pod. It's funny because I was asking my patrons, and some of the I said, well, any questions for Chris or whatnot? And somebody said, somebody asked, well, are there any nightmare stories that he can share? I said, well,
Oh
I don't know if
boy.
I want to divulge any of that, but there are stories out there.
There certainly are. I don't think I could name names. That would be, I wouldn't feel good doing that. But
Okay.
yeah. But I mean, there were certain guests that would throw a monkey wrench into the plans with like interviews that they had scheduled, and or I want to sell at my table. I'll do my interviews later, and tell them to meet me after the expo at like 6:30. And I'm thinking, hey, you do know that these people also have lives and probably have plans. That's kind of arrogant for you to think that way. I won't name the name, but
Right.
I mean, not for the vast majority of guests, we really haven't had issues. It's only just a small, I could count on one hand like the number of nightmare stories. And that's, I should really thank my lucky stars for that. There could be tons more. And then
Right.
also with the podcasters for the most part are always super agreeable and work with me and understand that, it's a lot of work, and, they're flexible. We do our best to make it work for all of them, but no, not really. I mean, well, the first year aside where we had some drama, but that's a long story from a long time ago. So I don't want to dredge that back up again, but, yeah. Although people still bring up like, I hope they have a table. That still comes up from time to time.
I haven't said that in a long time. So
Yeah. But that's pretty small potatoes compared to what could have been, what could have gone wrong. But
right.
no, I mean, I think everyone's left as friends that's been a part of the event. Well, most people. It's not a run-in with a few people this year. But anyway, that's another long story that I definitely will not talk about. But
Okay.
the vast majority of guests and podcasters, everyone's been great to work with. I don't have too much the stuff that's super salacious I couldn't share on here because I wouldn't, that would be pretty unprofessional and unethical publicly for me to say stuff, but it's rock and roll, it's music industry. So of course there's weird stuff that happens behind the scenes, but it's nothing earth shattering or anything.
Right. Well, Chris is saving it for the book.
There will not be a book because no one will buy it. But yeah, they're like, well, my mom and my brother and my dog like it.
Rockin' Pod the book, the story of one Decibel Geek's rise to power.
Still waiting on that rise, Victor. But thanks.
Hey now.
Hey now.
All right. So let's give a rundown of Rockin' Pod. So it is really Rockin' Pod weekend now.
Yeah, that's how we're marketing it now, because you can't just say ROCKNPOD EXPO because it has so many other things involved now. So
right.
But yeah, I mean, ROCKNPOD EXPO is still pretty much just a Saturday thing, but there's a lot going on around it. Like at the expo, I mean, we've got over 50 guests this time. It's by far the most we've ever had. We've got over 40 podcasts coming. There's going to be tons of panel discussions, live podcast interviews. I can share a few things that look like they're pretty much set in stone.
Okay.
As I mentioned, Jason McMaster and Dave Glessner earlier, they do the Talk Louder podcast. So there will be a live interview on stage with them interviewing Eddie Ojeda from Twisted Sister. I'm pretty excited to see that. I think that'll be a good talk. Also, Mark Weiss, the photographer, is going to be coming and bringing like a small gallery of stuff to show off from his career. I think he's going to be doing a live interview on the live podcast stage. The big one I'm excited for, as long as just got to get our ducks in a row a little bit, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen, is a panel on the Decline 2 movie with some of the people that were in it, including Rick Fox and Stevie Rochelle and Mark Andrews from Seduce, who we announced recently.
Yeah,
and that's kind of meaningful to me because when I was like 11, 12 years old, I'd watch that documentary because MTV used to run it, I think. Yeah, they would run it like late at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, growing up in Nashville, because Nashville 1987 was not anything like it is today. And I would watch that documentary and just dream about going to LA to hang out with all these people. Because that was what my music, and, then this many years later, well, it'll be 35 years this year. A lot of them live here. And so to be able to do something to commemorate that movie means a lot to me personally.
You guys should have a kiddie pool with with a floating chair and a bottle, an empty, what was that? A Jim Beam bottle with water,
Vodka.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because it's clear. Okay.
I mean, we did look into the possibility of trying to get Chris Holmes, but it was pretty cost prohibitive when it comes to bringing somebody and their wife over from France. And he did a little swing through Canada a few months ago, and if it could have timed out to where he was, coming from there to here, it would have been doable. But he has nothing else going on in America around that time, so it's kind of like if I'm the one promoter bringing him over and then taking him back, there's just no way it would have worked financially. It just wouldn't have worked. But I would have loved to have had him.
Right. What are you and Aaron doing that day?
Well, I'll be running around like a crazy person, I'm sure. I'm hoping I get to actually enjoy some of it this time. I mean, we have so many great team members. As long as everything runs smoothly, I'll probably actually get to mingle and check out some of the stuff myself. Aaron will be the main stage MC like he always is. So he'll be, introducing the stuff in between panels. Aside from that, he's probably also his wife is going to be bringing a lot of rock t-shirts to Vin. So he'll probably be helping her at her booth to do that. But yeah, Aaron and I are like the two most manic people that day as far as like having to go from one thing. And also there's so many people I want to catch up with, but it's also it's a blessing and a curse because I do get to see a lot of them, but I don't get to see them for long because it's 5-minute conversations here and there, and then I got to go on to somebody else,
Yeah.
But that's also another reason I like to book all the outside events, the concerts and stuff, because I hope they'll stay in town for the other things, and I can typically rest more and hang out more at those things because it's other people running those shows. It's not me. So like Friday night, Tyson Leslie is going to be running the Rare Hair show, the pre-party concert. I won't have much to do with that other than just hang out. Ron Keel and his people are doing the Keel Fest show Saturday night, so I'll just get to hang out at that. I don't think I'll have much to do with that show.
Right.
And then so I'll have a little bit more to do with the Kiss Exposed movie screening thing on Sunday. I'll probably end up working the door for that to get everybody in the door, and then watch the movie, and then the comedy show. That there's a whole staff of people working that within the Eric Martin concert. So I mean, Saturday is going to be my craziest day. Getting through the expo. That's the big thing for me. Outside of that, it's just hopefully hanging out with friends and enjoying myself.
Will you and Aaron be doing any of the panels this year, or that's not on the table?
It's possible. I'm still, that's another thing. I have to finalize that this weekend and figure it out. Because there's one big name potential guest we're trying to land here at the last minute. And if we land him, then it will determine if Aaron and I do a moderating thing or not.
Okay.
But yeah, that's all I can really say. But yeah, it'll, keep your fingers crossed. If it doesn't work out, I think we have a great event either way. But yeah, we typically do moderate a panel, but I actually need to talk to him this weekend and see if he even wants to. I mean, it may be less stressful if we don't,
Okay. Yeah. And just to put people at ease, he's not talking about me going to Rock and Pod. I'm very cognizant that The Decibel Geek guys would not spend more than 30 seconds with me on stage because nobody wants to see that. You've got this, which
I would.
Yeah, you would, but people would be in the audience saying, "Who the hell's this guy?" Why did they
I would
interview
say
him?
I'd say it's the drummer from Tool. It's Danny Carey.
Oh, you fucker.
I'm telling you, I can book Danny Carey so much cheaper if I just bring you in, and then I'll do the same with Ian. I'll just say Vince Neil's coming.
I don't know, man. They Ross Halfin touched up those new Vince Neil pictures pretty good. Huh?
Yes, he did, didn't he? Everybody's sending me the picture going, look how great Vince looks. I'm like,
yeah.
How many filters are laid on top of that photo?
Kidding me?
He does look better though. I'll give him that. He does look like he has trimmed down a bit, so I'm happy for him for that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not in great shape either, so not like I can talk.
Yeah. First thing that I noticed with the picture is, did they purposely go after a guitarist that was the same height as Mick?
Yeah, he is pretty short, isn't he?
He's the shortest guy in the band, so the guitarist continues to be the shortest guy. That press release looks, or not, that was an Instagram post that looks so weird because it had everyone was tagged except for Mick. And the first thing I thought of was what Karabi's been saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this doesn't look like he approved this at all,
Yeah. Well, I've heard from other sources that seems to be the case.
Yeah.
That there's not a lot of love going back and forth there.
Yeah, well. No. We've established in previous conversations they're not exactly the greatest people in the world. So
yeah, I mean they're kind of like the heavy metal or the hard rock equivalent of the main four members of Seinfeld, because I love watching Seinfeld, but they're all four despicable people.
Right.
Yeah, Motley Crue's kind of the same. Like,
right.
There's really nothing that redeeming about any of them, but for some reason they entertain you.
Who's running around saying Stella?
That'd probably be Tommy.
There you go.
Tommy's the Elaine of the band.
Oh, that's funny.
There's a game. Figure out which Seinfeld character the members of Motley Crue are.
Right. How many bands could that be applied to?
Oh, plenty of them, I'm sure.
I'm
sure if you did Kiss, Ace Frehley is definitely Kramer. Yeah. Peter Criss is George Costanza because he complains all the time.
Right.
Paul Stanley has to be Elaine, and then I guess Gene Simmons is Jerry.
That's pretty funny. Go ahead, George. Just park next to the hydrant.
Just go pee behind the car. Nothing will happen.
Go ahead, Curly. Oh man. Where can people get tickets for Rockin' Pod?
RockNPod.com. That's we've got the lowest level of VIP. Got a few of those left, but the two other ones are sold out. But lots of early admission and general admission. And one thing I've been pushing lately is, because a lot of people want to go to the Keel Fest show too. And I'm like, so if you just want to make a whole day and night of it, come to the expo and then go to Keel Fest, and we have a combo ticket where you essentially get half off admission to Rockin' Pod if you do that. So,
right.
And we've done well. Those have sold pretty well. So, yeah, if you just want to make a full Saturday and Saturday night of it, that's what I would suggest. And then of course, the Rare Hair tickets there's a link to that on there. And, that's going to be an awesome show with so many special guests. It always is. Tyson does such an amazing job putting those together. And then the comedy show with the Eric Martin concert, that's going to be awesome. I mean, Eric Martin's going to do comedy for the first time. And then of course, Craig, Dawn, and Courtney are going to always be funny on their stuff. And then Eric's full concert after that. And then the Kiss movie screening was a big hit last year. And we did it with the Kiss Meets the Phantom. So with those comedians doing commentary over Exposed, I don't see how you would want to miss that.
So it's such a classic film in a different way.
I've told a few people about that, and they're like, well, do you need comedian commentary on Exposed? It's kind of funny just to start with, unintentionally, but with Craig doing the Gene Simmons impression, I can't imagine it won't be funny.
Yeah, you I think it'll heighten the humor, because I think to an extent they were trying to be goofy with that. Obviously, I mean, I don't think anyone who thinks that Paul Stanley was being serious with like the workout stuff and some of the other stuff.
Obviously tongue in cheek.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that'll be, and I didn't even think of that with Craig doing the Gene voice at the same time. I mean, that's
I most look forward to what he's gonna say when they go to the Gene's bedroom scene where he's wearing that ridiculous outfit and the cape, and he's got
yeah.
and the girls' heads on the wall. I'm
Yeah.
truly looking forward to what he's gonna have to say for that.
Yes, you posted the first encounter between him and Gene from Howard not too long ago, and I've listened to that quite a bit over the years. I'm like, yeah, I got to listen to this again.
It's so funny. I've watched it so many times.
It's a shame they don't have the video, because that was on.
I posted the wrong link. The video does exist on YouTube. I
does.
posted the audio link instead. But yeah,
Right.
you can watch the whole thing on YouTube.
Yeah. To me, he's, when it comes to doing Kiss stories or, imitations or whatever, I mean, some of the stuff that he's said on shows in Gene's voice, I mean, it's just some of the funniest shit out there.
Yeah, we're always happy to have him back, and then Don and Courtney are both just hilarious, and yeah, they're kind of staples of ROCKNPOD at this point. So it's
right.
It wouldn't be the same without them.
Yeah, totally. Because I remember when you started throwing names out there this year, I was thinking, the comedians have to be in here somewhere. They have to pop up at some point.
Yeah, it just works so well with that crowd, and they can focus the humor specifically on Kiss and on rock stuff, and
right.
So yeah, it's our event's kind of tailor made for their comedy.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the show, way back in the first hour, we talked quite a bit about Ticketmaster. Obviously, no Ticketmaster involved with what you guys are doing here. It's directly through you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm going to flip this a little bit on the side, this next question, because one of the things that we talked about was how there are hedge funds that are here in Europe that are buying into festivals. And one of the things that they're doing is cutting Ticketmaster and Live Nation out of these festivals.
Wow.
What they're doing is they're setting up their own ticketing sites, and they're licensing the name of the festivals to different countries and different things. So there's still hope on different levels.
Yeah, but the only thing with that is I'm a little surprised they're being that bold and doing that, because the big reason Ticketmaster has such a stranglehold on all these promoters and stuff is because once you go against them and do one show and cut them out of the picture, then they will withhold talent from you getting them again. So, or getting future shows. That's the big, they love to strong arm the little guy. So that kind of surprises me.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of these festivals there's 3 big festivals here in Spain that have been that hedge funds have bought into. They are electronic festivals. So they're not rock festivals. So it's a little different because we're talking about DJs and stuff like that. So, if you can't bring one guy in, the name itself, I mean, that's what we were talking about earlier, how, back in the 80s and 90s, if the name Monsters of Rock was attached to a tour here in Europe, you were expecting a certain quality of show.
Right.
So, for example, they were talking about how one of the names of the festivals is Sonar. Sonar's been here for like 30 years now. So they've started to branch out and do a festival in Australia and in several South American countries. And they were saying that the selling point was that. They were saying, hey, this festival has been around for 30 years they have the premier, electronic acts and this and that. So that's why they're taking a chance and doing this kind of stuff, because they're buying the brand name and selling the brand name. I honestly, because I'm not that in tune with those or that style of music, I don't know if they, if they're using big name DJs or if, it's something like what you mentioned where Ticketmaster only gets the upper end people. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I posted the link to the hearing. They were grilling them at Congress like a week ago. The CEO of Live Nation was on there, and as well as an independent musician and a guy from SeatGeek, and also a promoter from Minnesota who used to book where he books like arena shows.
Mm-hmm.
It typically these types of hearings are pretty dull, and I mean this one kind of is, but if you're interested in that subject matter, it's pretty enlightening just to see the state of things depending on what the guy from Live Nation says and the other people say. So it'll infuriate you, but it's enlightening.
Yeah. So they control 85% of all tickets around the world, and he's trying to say that there's more competition than ever.
Yeah. Competition with who?
Right. Themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as I speculate, how this came about, I'm assuming was that some congresswoman or congressperson or senators' kids couldn't get Taylor Swift tickets.
Most
So
likely.
that's why this all came about.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people in Congress getting comped a lot of tickets.
Oh, and that's what it's going to wind up boiling down to. It's I don't think any meaningful change is going to happen. The fact that they let Live Nation and Ticketmaster have a merger in the first place, I mean, it was game over from that point forward. And then good luck trying to break that apart now. It's not happening.
Well, and figure before that, you had Ticketmaster buy Ticketron, so they bought their main competitor.
Oh, it's just like Vince McMahon with wrestling,
right? It is very similar to that, absolutely.
Yeah.
So anyway, my question I got, of course, as usual, but Hedge Fund comes in, says, Chris, we want to partner with you on ROCKNPOD. You have the bank doors are wide open. You can bring any 5 guests that you want to ROCKNPOD.
Okay.
Who are you bringing?
Oh, wow. Alice Cooper, number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you hit me with this out of nowhere. I don't even know what to think of. Can I include a band that I would want to bring in to perform?
Okay, sure.
And count that as 1 guest.
Okay.
So I'll say this is just me personally. It's the people I would want to see. So Alice Cooper would be like the keynote guest. I'd bring in Volbeat to play the pre-party concert.
Okay.
Because I want to, and I'd bring. Man, this is hard. I don't. You hit me out of nowhere with the. I don't even know. But I mean, it's not like some of these are not going to be like reach for the sky people. I mean, James Hetfield would be amazing. For the big names, obviously.
James Hetfield, thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave Mustaine would be awesome.
At the same time?
Yeah. Do a panel with the two of them, doing a therapy session in front of our audience. I would bring in Gene Simmons only if he agreed to do an on-stage interview where people can ask him any question and he can't use any of his typical cliches.
Okay.
But then there's other guests that probably are kind of closer to in my reach, but it just hasn't happened yet. Like Scott Gorham from Thin Lizzy would be a big one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Marky Ramone is still on my wish list. I want a Ramone to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Rob Halford, that would be a big one.
Right.
Those are the ones that come to mind kind of right away.
Okay. That's cool. That would Just imagine that. Well,
if I could book any guest for Rockin' Pod that you would pick, who would you pick?
If you could book anyone that I would pick, good question. Hetfield isn't a bad one. Personally, I mean, some people know this. My recurring dream of somebody that I've been interviewing in my dreams, and this is never anyone that I've sat down and said, I really want to interview this person. But if I ever interviewed them, it would be a big deal. It would be Lars Ulrich.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've had vivid dreams of just sitting down on a couch and talking music with him and waking up and saying, yeah, that'll never happen.
Yeah. He would be an awesome guest for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think from even without having to talk about Metallica, just talking to him about music in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he would be, you know, outrageous to get on there. I mean, for me, my pre-party band would probably be Anthrax.
With John Bush singing.
With John Bush singing. You understand where I'm going with this.
Yeah. Play volume 8 from start to finish.
All right. I could handle that. I don't know that they could, but
no, they wouldn't agree to it.
Yeah. The see, I would switch it. I would have Gene Simmons do the punchlines and backlines. Because I think that for as much as people give Gene shit, I think he would be really funny within those confines.
Yeah, as long as Courtney's writing his material, sure.
But also seeing him and Craig Gass go back and forth with stuff.
That would be funny.
Yeah. Because even again, with that Stern interaction that you posted, he initially didn't know how to handle it. And he was laughing, you know, most of the time. So
yeah, he really got a kick out of it.
Yeah. What else? After party. Who would you have for your after party? It's your equivalent of Keel Fest.
Oh wow. I would get the Thin Lizzy guys that are still around together and do a full Thin Lizzy set. That would be my pick.
Okay. Yeah. But I would, all right, so this is what I would say. With Keel Fest 2, you have Steeler, you have Keel, you have, you know, all the various incarnations of bands that Ron has been in. So you could do that. You could do Thin Lizzy. You could have Ricky somehow wrangling the guys from the Almighty.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you get Scott, you get Brian Downey, you get Robbo, you even get Snowy White to show up, and like everyone that's Damon Johnson, who lives here, he played with them for a while. Get John Sykes to come. You know, it could be like a Lizzy Fest, that type thing.
Would you have Carmine come down to play if John Sykes comes?
Oh yeah, opening act reunited Blue Murder. That's a great idea. Yeah, get Tony Franklin and Carmine and John.
Hedge funds, if you want to see this happen.
Yeah, I don't think any hedge funds are going to be lining up around the block to pay for that lineup. I would love to see it, but like it's not Metallica in a stadium, but yeah, I would love to see it.
Right. But I mean, let's all right. So that's the thing. To get big money involved into that, you have to be like at a Comic-Con level.
Well, you've got to shoot bigger for the people that have bigger mass appeal than, as much as I love Thin Lizzy, they don't have the mass appeal that Metallica has. So
right.
And that's why, you know, we do grow every year. We might have grown faster if I kind of had that way of thinking, but to me, I think our event's cool because of the way it is.
Right. And this is, I mean, I've mentioned this to you from the start. Comic-Con didn't have that big blow up until year 10.
I can't even imagine going 10 years doing this, but we'll see.
Right. Because we are at what, year 5?
This is the 5th actual event. It would have been 6, but thanks COVID.
Yes.
Well, I guess. Oh wait, so 17, 18, 19 didn't do one in 20, did one in 21. Yeah, so yeah, this is the 5th one.
Yeah.
Because I took 2022 off. Right.
Yeah. Has that helped?
I used to think so. I don't know so much now. Now it almost makes it that much more intense with so much on my plate. But yeah, I think it was nice to get a breather from it. Got to spend some time with my kid more. But I don't know if it'll be an every year thing. We might stick to the every 2 years thing. But there also is talk from some other people coming in that want to possibly take it out west and do a West Coast version. So we'll see. There's a lot of conversation still to be had on that.
Okay. The other thing too that I'm sure once the event is done, you'll also be able to compare whether it was worth doing in the spring as opposed to doing in the summer.
Yeah. This is a little bit of uncharted territory doing it this time of year. So we'll see how it goes. But at least it won't be hot as balls and 100 degrees like it usually is. So hopefully the weather will be nice and it'll be warm, but not super hot.
Right. It won't be 200 degrees.
Yeah, it's usually brutally hot when we have it. So I'm happy that's not the case.
Yeah. Cool. Any parting words? Anything you want to say before we wrap things up?
If you're watching or you hear this later and you're anywhere in the vicinity of Nashville or you can make it in the day, come down, hang out. It's a lot of fun. We also have new people that come every year that have no idea what it is, but they just give it a try. And then they come back every year. So I like to think that once you get in the building and you see what it is, you're going to like it and you're going to have a good time. You'll make new friends. You'll get your record signed or whatever. Or if you have a podcaster that's going to be there, come meet them. Nothing better if you're a podcaster than meeting one of your listeners. So, just come. Nashville's a fun town to hang out in and we have a hell of a lot going on. So hope you'll join us.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you as usual for your time, sir. And it's always fun to catch up with you and talk about pretty much anything. So,
we do this on the phone regularly anyway, but yeah, I'll probably talk to you tomorrow, but yeah, it's cool.
Right. This is a variation of one of our regular phone calls.
Yep.
So
just no dogs barking this time, thankfully.
There's no dog barking. Yeah. Well, I did a for my Patreon show. I barked on the mic for that because I was imitating someone else. My patrons will get it, but we'll see. On that note, I wrap up this edition of the Signals from Mars live stream. The podcast version will be available in about a week. It'll be 2 separate episodes. It will be hour 1 and then the episode with Chris Czynszak talking about all things ROCKNPOD. Make it out there if you can. It is a worthwhile event. Wish I could make it every day on the year that it takes place. It always bums me out. I'm like, shit, man. One of these years, I'm like, I got to play the lottery more. So
invest in a hedge fund and then just buy me out. You'll be good.
There you go. Well, if I win the lottery, I could be a silent partner.
There you go.
On that note, folks, thanks again for watching or listening to the playback, depending on where you're watching or seeing or where you're watching or listening, I should say. It is late, folks. So the mind is starting to not work as well. And I'm seeing that I'm about to click on the intro video instead of the outro video. Anyway, on that note, folks, we will see you next time right here on the Signals from Mars live stream. See ya.
Thank you for watching the Signals from Mars live stream. You can watch the show live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, or check out replays on YouTube. Go to signalsfrommars.com for more information. This concludes our show.